Good evening, everyone. That was kind of a sad story, Jason, of my little boy. Got my attention. Okay, so here we are. I want to thank everybody. A lot of the department heads are here. Patrick and I met with all the department heads. Everybody was pretty much on the same page. Our operating budget, as reported to you, pretty much fell right into place. We've got everything pretty much done. We added a contingency line this year. The only adjustment I have is a minor one. The town manager asked me to do research on salaries for the governing body. So I researched similar municipalities in the state of North Carolina. I think it's attached, I handed out. And believe it or not, we're on the low end of the salary structure. We want to have good people, which we have on the board. We want to keep you guys on there, and women. So Patrick recommended the only change that's attached is a total, an additional 2% for the governing body. So it will be an additional $810. I'd like to read this on the floor. Increase board member salaries 10-0-0-4110-121-00, $810. In addition, increase Social Security Medicare match 10-0-0-4110-181.00, $153. The budget will stay the same because I decreased the next four items in the same budget. Decrease workman's comp 10-0-0-4110, 186,000 by $6. Decrease WC Citizens Academy 10-0-0-4110-23100, minus $200. Decrease other communications 10-0-0-4110-32900, $500. Decrease volunteer committee expenses 10-0-0-4110-39900, $250. And finally, $7 deduction for staff events 10-0-0-4110-499.000. So that's for discussion, if you want to discuss that one, or otherwise, like I said, we spent the last part of the budget process, and I want Pat to get more involved in this, on the CIP, and a lot of plans going forward. We wanted to make sure we have that funded, and we're pretty comfortable that we do. We spent a lot of time on that. We have another road resurfacing contract. We hadn't had one in quite a few years. Last year was out. It was very successful. We have another one budgeted this year. Todd and Patrick gave you the roads. We had a survey, roads under 40 were done this year. Next year we plan on doing roads with a score of 40 to 60. And our goal is to get roads up to 80%. So basically, the tax rate stays the same at 18.5. Any discussion? Gary?
Yeah, if at all possible, for this increase in pay raise, I'd rather stay with what I'm at now till my term's done, and then you can just give that increase to whoever takes my seat, please.
Duly noted.
Just for curiosity's sake, Jim, I saw that too. Just so people in here will know, what is it? 5%? 2%?
3% was in plus 2, so we'll be a total of 5%.
Right. So we're talking about $20 a week. Is that what we're talking about, or that much? Or?
Yeah, in that ballpark.
Okay. All right. Just in case anybody was curious, how much it was. I think it's $20 a week.
Okay, I can read a couple of numbers real quick. The mayor, for example, municipalities with populations that we fall in, the average is 13,000. And our mayor makes 30,000, Michael? And Michael makes 9,000. For the mayor pro temp, the average is 8,700, and Mayor pro temp Cone makes 6,000 and change. So we're into that. And this 5% raise does not get them there, but it's getting in the right direction. And then lastly, the governing board, the council, the average is 8,500, and our folks make 5,600. Patrick looked at it, he said, let's do something, and I agreed, so that's our recommendation.
Just to answer Councilman Combs' question, it's about $10 a week. Because we're going from, and you know, it's no big thing, we're going from 58 to 61. So it's about $10 a week. But appreciate it.
It's a little bit more than that, of course, but in that ball, I'd say between 10 and 20. I think that's shaky. We'll have to go in that direction and take a look at it again next year. It was an interesting process, I thought. We got a late start, but we caught up. Thank you for the budget retreats. We'll have a good budget. I know we're going out of 16, 17 in good shape. Pat and I met with all the departments, and I talked about that a little bit. But we should be in good shape going out. The auditors are here now this week. Because the post is June 30th, so another good year financially.
Public comment? At this time, I'll open up the public comments. Thank you, Jim. Amanda Falkenberry, same rules apply, 3 minutes.
I'd like to thank the staff for an excellent budget. It was easy for me to read and work through. A lot simpler than budgets I've worked through before, so congratulations, well done. But I do have some questions. I was looking at Appendix A, funded projects. And I'm curious, where will the town pull the cash for the street projects from? The actual cash amount, where is it coming from? Second, between the street and park projects, it appears that the town is activating $5 million in bonds. What will that bring our total town debt to? Number 3, how is this additional debt reflected in the budget? Which section shows it? Number 4, what is the projected repayment for the bonds that will be activated? Number 5, can our current tax rate support this increase in town debt in the coming years? Number 6, will the town need to activate the old Monroe Road bond in this coming budget year? If so, how will this affect the town's debt and the residents' tax rate? Thank you.
Let me start off saying that Patrick and Jim did a great job with the budget. Not to raise taxes, 18.5 cents, and understanding what you had to do with the operating fund. I think it was a great job. And the budget was easy to read, which probably is, well, I got a lot of questions from my constituents. And it was about item H. Oh, by the way, I did meet with Patrick and Jim about the budget on Friday, so this is not something that's just coming at the next meeting. And I would like for item H in the CIP just to spell it out the way it is and be a lot more transparent, because I think it's kind of confusing to a lot of people when they read it. And the way I explained it to them was it's perfectly legal for a municipality to take money from one fund, start a project, then if they have bonds, sell the bond and pay back the fund that they borrowed the money from. That's perfectly legal. But I, like the young lady said, there's a lot of questions that should be answered and should be transparent as far as we are going to be cashing in $5 million of bonds. And in addition to that, I think there's like $2 million in aid cash that's coming from where, and that should be transparent and say, where are we getting this $2 million aid? We're getting it from fund balance, which will say so. Fund balance, by the way, is not a bad thing. It's good that you have it. If you have it, you spend it when you need it. You spend it on capital projects. But I just think that section itself when we go to vote on this budget, I'd like it to be a lot more transparent, just come out and say, yeah, we are gonna incur debt, but this is why. You know, if you guys want roads and want parks, this is what it's all about. Young lady made a good point about our tax base. I was amazed that at 18.5 cents they were able to get all this done. And I'm just wondering down the road, if that's gonna be the case. You know, those are the challenges for I guess for the council members of the future. Bless them. But just to say, Patrick and Jim did a good job on the budget. I would like to be a lot more transparent in that debt area, because a lot of people that I spoke to really didn't know what it was about. Okay, and they asked me to go over it, to make it a part of the record, that it is going to be debt that we're going to be taking on. And I won't go and guess and say, where did the money come from? I can only think that where it came from, which is not bad. And if it came from fund balance, so be it. Thank you very much.
This time I'll close public comments. Council?
Just one quick comment also, is I'm sure, Jim, you're happy to answer all those questions. I mean, not here, not tonight, but anybody, feel free that if you want to call Jim and ask him the finance, he'd be more than happy to answer any of those questions. And I'm just curious, the definition of transparent, I kind of take that as honest. Honesty is, and I think it's kind of a harsh word to say, to be transparent in your budget, because I think you're very transparent. I think both of you are all transparent in your budget. Now, you might not understand something that's in the budget, but transparent is kind of a strong word to say, as if you're hiding something. And I don't believe, I just want to, for the record, want to say that I don't think anybody in the town is trying to hide anything. Maybe make it easier to understand, and that's why I wanted you to answer any questions, or anybody can feel free to ask any of you questions on any of this stuff, and then come back and ask. So transparent is kind of a harsh word to use, but anyway.
Yeah, I think, you know, to kind of address some of the debt questions and concerns, I believe that during the last workshop, we did ask staff to prepare a chart that shows from now until what we projected out, 2025, 2027, to include within the budget, showing, you know, if we were to take out the old Monroe bond, it would be at this amount from a debt obligation perspective, which would mean we would have to consider certain scenarios based on. So I think we've already addressed that as well. Kind of, you know, concern. Perfect, you have it. Awesome. So I don't know, Jim, if you wouldn't mind just taking a few minutes and kind of walk us through this. I appreciate you guys putting this together.
I'll contact you.
Yeah. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. We spent an awful lot of time on this part of the budget because we want to be aggressive. We got a lot of infrastructure work. So basically, what this chart represents, the blue column. The blue column represents the actual monies we'll have available to pay, and that's on chart 3. Would you flip that, Adam, real quick? And that's right here. We work this up. So this green box here, these are the actual revenues that will be coming in. So let's just take 1 year. Pal bill already about $850,000. Stormwater fees, thank you. We're going to increase by 25%. So now we're going to have $1.4 million coming in. That money's going to be well spent on drainage projects. Street bonds, we have $4 million available. We broke that out for the next 15 years to 2032 mark. The parks bond, we have $2.5 million available. We broke that over 2 years. And we have the debt service, that's the nickel, and that's going to grow every year by 3%. Our tax receiver's here, she does a great job. Matter of fact, that's up by $120,000 this year over the budget. So that service capital reserve fund grows every day, which is a great thing you guys adopted in 2014. And then the 270 is the actual difference between revenues and expenses in the operating budget. So if we take the 1 year, 2017-18, we're gonna have 5.9 million. Back to chart 1, Adam, please. We're gonna have 5.9. Our expenses with the project, so I'll show you that in a second, is 5.1. So we're gonna have a surplus of 737,000 going to the next year. I'm not gonna take it through every year, but here's Old Monroe Road kicks in. And what we did there, we were conservative. We said 5 million comes into play, and then we spread the other 5 million over. Even though we believe there's gonna be a reimbursement of 5 million, we didn't take that into account. Patrick, you wanna say something about that, or?
No, we did that on purpose, just to be on the conservative side, even though Councilmember Carey, and it was brought up in an earlier meeting, that we don't get that 5 million back. So that red bar that we see out there, that could be shortened for that year.
And there's one more thing, Gary. And then basically what we're saying is in here, we're gonna suggest a price increase, a tax increase. Maybe, again, put it in there. We want these green bars to grow. So maybe the year before, 20, but this year we felt comfortable at 18.5 cents. And no new debt in this budget because, check with the financial advisors, there's no shovel-ready projects. By the time you get funding in the state of North Carolina, it takes 6 months. By the time Karen gets involved, and the bonding attorney, and the financial, then you go to the LGC. So this year, our bond is 1.5 million, but we're prepared to go up, and that's what these charts reflect. Clark.
So, Jim, I think this is great. I definitely appreciate you guys putting this together. I think this kind of addresses that transparency concern, because now you can see from a debt allocation perspective what we're expected to hit. The question that I have, though, is for the Monroe, which is right there. We heard at the last meeting that the timeline has moved up, right, which means they could start breaking ground somewhere around 1920, right? So you have it, though, allocated in 23, 24?
23.
So if they're going to break ground earlier, obviously we're going to have to project that loss forward, right? So with the green coming down, I'm assuming we have a negative situation. So is the potential there that we could see a negative situation coming a few years earlier if we have to move that bond forward by a couple of years?
Yeah, that could be. And then Patrick, go ahead. And Gary.
One item in regard to that chart benefited us looking at, if we just take as an example the green, which is the surplus, you could see the first 5 years it's constant. Usually it needs to be sort of increased as a straight point, because if we want to keep up with the infrastructure in the city, we have to have the money. And with time value of money, the cost of things, materials, and everything is going to increase. So what that chart teaches us there is that those 5 years where you see the green at the same level, we might need to come up with some money, maybe by increasing taxes a couple of cents, just to make up for those CIP projects that we're going to come up with. And then when we go over the hump where the Monroe Road is also continue to go up. So everything should be a straight line with an increasing rate from this point on. Right now we do have some knowledge about the growth of 3%, the spending 3%, but if we look at the 15 years, that's not enough. So for future years, we need to say, maybe come before council and say, we need to, for those 3 years, we need to increase by 3 cents. Maybe in the next 6 years, we need to increase by 7, just to catch up. In addition to the incentive of having low taxes here, we need to come up with some more money to not attract nice neighborhood and businesses, but attract big companies that could bring us a lot of tax revenue.
Gary.
Yeah, so a couple things. So we have to keep in mind to an Old Monroe Road on drawdown, the sunsetting of the bond eventually, plus our extensions. So that'll move it up. And also, aren't you pretty much very conservative or somewhat conservative with your CAGR of 3 on the ad valorem?
Yeah.
Right?
We're 3.6.
What was the
3.6 this year, 3.59. So this is based on, would you go to the second chart, Adam, please? And these are the projects that we, next one. Here we go. these are the projects, Mrs. Falkenberg, we go over with you. But, Patrick accounted for everything and then some.
As I mentioned, I said be more transparent, I bet you will not. And I think that just heading it tonight is that if we're gonna take on more debt for these projects, then you just hit it tonight and said, you know, we have to look at raising our revenue down the road. Okay, so that's the transparent part, that's the more transparent. Now, you mentioned that we're not gonna take on any debt this year. We have the bonds out there. As soon as we sell the bonds, we're taking on debt.
Yeah, but you don't make your first payment, believe it or not, for a year after the money's drawn down. You make your first interest payment and then your first principal payment a year later.
But, true, but in selling the bonds, you're incurring debt. Because you have bond lawyers, you have fees or whatever,
Yeah,
so you are incurring debt. And I think what was missing in the budget is just to come out and say, hey guys, you know, we need to get things done in this town and we need money to do it.
Jim, if I may, what we showed, the numbers that we're showing in red there, could you read that down at the bottom? There you go. Can you read that on the left-hand side? What each column is for? I'm looking at capital improvement projects. That's for the first item in red, right? And then under it, I'm looking at the cost of the street for the next 15 years. And then the debt service, this is what we're financing, those bonds that we're financing right now. They're shown on that column, right there in that row. And the last item is Monroe Road. So if we take Monroe Road and finance it for so many years, that's it. So if we do simple math, the green minus red, we're ending up with the numbers at the bottom, and that's what reflects the green on the chart, which is a surplus. So that's why we try to use colors and show the numbers and list everything, so everything is there for whoever is reviewing the budget to see. And Mark, in regard to the Monroe Road on the chart, what we did here is that we will pay DOT the $5 million at the completion of the project. So like, we'll work with them and treat them the same way they're treating us.
Right.
So as soon as they complete the project, we will say, you know, here's the $5 million that we owe you. So it's all in there. So that's why you see it. We're not going to pay it in an earlier year until the project is complete.
But so, you know, and just to, I guess, just to help me understand the Old Monroe bond and kind of the agreement that was made with the state. Essentially, we have to come up with $10 million. So that means that we're gonna go to market, we're gonna sell these bonds, we're gonna incur that $10 million debt, right? At the end of the project, we're gonna get $5 million back. However, we can't take that $5 million and put it against the bond that we've already paid, right? So we still have a and I think this is very important for the residents to understand. We keep talking about $5 million coming back, but that does not mean that our debt now decreases by $5 million. That means we have potentially an additional $5 million to use elsewhere. However, we still have on the books, and we're still paying interest and principal towards that $10 million, right? So it's important we get that messaging very clear, because I've talked to residents and they're very confused about that. But at the end of the day, we still have a $10 million debt load in addition to the other debt loads that we have on the books. Okay, so I just want to make sure that gets clarified around the record.
And Patrick, you and I spoke about this Friday, that the frustrating part is we don't know when we will receive that $5 million. I mean, there's no fixed date, 30 days after, 60 days after, 90 days after.
No, as of now, it's just
Right.
it's a verbal no agreement that shows we're getting
Right.
that 5, but that's something that's occurred in the past. And
State legislature approved it, so you can find out. Yeah, so a thing on Old Monroe Road, I know we put up $10 million, but the thought behind that was, honestly, the project wouldn't have been done until 2040 in that MPP. So by doing that, you know, we heard the residents say that, listen, Old Monroe Road is really bad, that we need to widen that road, you know, widen it to 4 lanes where we can get some retail to come in and expand our growth. So I think it's kind of an ROI type thing, an investment that you're paying yourself back by doing that. So, you know, I think it's a win-win.
Patrick, are you expecting a motion tonight?
Yes, we are, if it's possible.
Comment on
This would be something that we haven't done before, where we had a, and I know we only have one person, but generally we have a public hearing. It's usually don't, versus public hearing, generally when we have a public hearing, we don't take a vote on it at night. And this would be something different, and if, you know, though I like the budget, but if a person comes up to a public hearing with some concerns, I think they're thinking that council would, or not the council, but the town manager would express those concerns with a finalized budget, not have someone come up there and express a concern and then vote on the budget. So just to let you know up front, if someone is gonna vote on this, I would have to step out just based on that, is that we're not giving them the respect to say, you made a comment, you had an issue, you had a concern, we're gonna think about it, we're gonna try to do something about it. I think to not do that is not fair to the public. And I know we're up against the wall with this budget, but that should not be their fault.
I just want to say that in public comments, we had one person talk about the public comments, and if I'm not mistaken, you answered all the questions, or tried to answer all those questions, and then of course you can always go back, and part of the problem is we had council people who couldn't make budget meetings, and couldn't make budget meetings, and couldn't make budget meetings, and it's kind of odd that Mr. Daniels was one of the ones that couldn't make the budget meetings, but yet we want to put this off. We can't really put it off unless we call a special meeting somewhere between now and the end of the month, or the state's going to come in here and take over. So I guess it's really where we put our priorities. So if one person gets up and in public comments, let's try to answer their questions, and then as a council in a town, I think we need to move on.
Yeah, no, I agree with Mr. Cohen. I think we've had budget workshops, and unfortunately, there was a budget workshop that was canceled for, you know, whatever reason. We tried to push for it, but, you know, there was some council members that were quite adamant that we don't do it, and they canceled last minute. So, you know, if the residents really want to complain, I think they should complain against those particular council members who decided to cancel at the last minute, which threw our budget workshop out of whack from a scheduling perspective. You know, if we just want to be honest about it. So we are up against the wall. Again, we are statutorily mandated to have an approved budget in place prior to July 1. And if I stated that correctly, or incorrectly, let me know. And, you know, as Mr. Cohen said, we'd have to do a special meeting, and you know, it's not easy trying to get all council members, as we have seen in previous previous calls of special meeting, to get all council members at the special meeting. So, you know, we're kind of, you know, at a point where we have to make that decision. I do agree that I think we've answered all the questions up here, you know, with giving a very good detailed description of the debt load all the way out. And I appreciate you going out as far as 2032. I didn't realize you guys were going to go out that far. So I think we've definitely got a clear roadmap ahead of us in terms of what needs to get done.
Yes. Go ahead.
I agree with both of you. I was upset because there's so many meetings that have been canceled, or people just didn't show up for a quorum. And we've given everybody an opportunity, and like Mrs. Falkenberry asked some questions that could be answered tonight or in more detail maybe after the meeting. But, you know, you just have one person get up and need some information. I think it's been publicized, so there's no reason why we can't take a vote tonight.
No, I'm fine with everything.
Council, your question.
Well, I'll make a motion. We go ahead and approve the town budget for whatever we get coming here.
17, 18.
17, 18, thank you.
Mr. Myers made a motion to approve the budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. All in favor? All opposed? The record stand, all were in favor. Mr. Daniels opposing. Budget's passed. 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you,
job,
Jim.
Jim.
Thank you, staff, for all the hard work under the fire that you will put under to get it done in an extraordinarily quick amount of time. That moves us to CZ 2016-006, Radiator Road Industrial Park. This is a proposed conditional zoning to support a 47-acre industrial park located along Radiator Drive off Old Monroe Road. The applicant is Liquid Management Rocks. Oh, there you are. Hello, Rob.
Members of council, it's a pleasure to be before you. Okay, so as you mentioned, we're going to talk about initial rezoning case CZ 2016-007. This is for a Radiator Road light industrial proposal. The proposed project involves a rezoning of approximately 47 acres that are located near the intersection of Old Monroe Road and Radiator Road. The current zoning is single-family residential 1. Proposed zoning is conditional light industrial, and as the mayor mentioned, the applicant is liquid management. And the underlying intent is to develop a light industrial park. So let's go ahead and make sure everybody is oriented to the site and is familiar with the area. I'll get up here and speak to the screen. So again, for orientation purposes, Old Monroe Road, Radiator Road, the existing Radiator Road is here. The subject property has an irregular shape that's outlined here in black. Kind of walking you through the surrounding area. Again, Radiator Road is an existing state-maintained road. At the end of it is the Radiator Specialty Company. It's roughly a 400,000 square foot heavy industrial user. Kind of moving clockwise. While the property is largely undeveloped, there is a future mixed-use community called Sagecroft located here adjacent to the subject property. Involves roughly 370 single-family homes and some commercial uses along the road frontage of Holden Road. Sagecroft continues to the other side of Holden Road, again with commercial uses fronting the road, and then about 104 townhome units associated with it. Kind of moving on, we're all familiar with the Brandon Oaks community, and then across from that is the Midway Park neighborhood that does abut the subject property. Yes, sir.
We do have some property that was donated to us also, the town owns.
That is correct. As part of the Sagecroft project, the town does have some parkland that is, so that is the where my fingers are, that's the future Bay Church Road corridor. And in this area, some land as part of Sagecroft was donated to the town and is intended for future park use. And I think the town is kind of examining those parcels in greater detail to see about possibly making those improvements. Yes.
How many acres are we talking about that were donated to the park?
I have to look over at our parks records. I don't have that answer.
Can you repeat the question?
How many acres are in the parkland that was dedicated as part of the Sagecroft project?
Yeah,
15 acres.
You're welcome. Any more questions before I?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So because of the property's proximity to Old Monroe Road, I thought it'd be useful to go ahead and show everyone the super street, future super street improvements. The subject property is identified with the red star, and you'll see here there are two within the vicinity of the property. There are two bulb outs for U-turn movements. If you recall, this road. You'll recall this road is a 4-lane median divided roadway, and the envisioned improvements included U-turn bulb improvements. And then the NCDOT has granted the ability to construct a left in into Radiator Road in light of the amount of existing and potential future truck traffic with that. So Radiator Road will be restricted to a right in and right out movement with a left in as well. So from a practical perspective, if you're at this property, you want to go southward to Monroe, you will make a right to exit the site, do a U-turn, and then that's when you'll begin your southward movement. So it's going to be a very dramatically different orientation along that road. But we're told it will help improve the flow of traffic. Yes, sir.
So the applicant, what was the TIA for that, or not existent on Old Monroe Road because of the modifications that will be made by the state?
Sorry, Mr. Savoy, did you ask me?
Traffic improvement,
Yes, there
for
was a.
their analysis, what came out of that?
Okay, that'll be later on in
Okay.
probably just a moment. Okay, this slide will be just a representation of the zoning in the surrounding area. Again, separate properties represented in star. The yellow parcels signify the single-family residential zoning in this area. The blue is representative of the Radiator Road, a Radiator Specialty Company, as a regional business designation. The white parcels are unincorporated in Union County. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the concept plan for this area. Again, concept plans are a required element of all conditional rezonings. It helps identify the future layout, design concepts for a given project. Again, 47 acres of light industrial uses. Again, the subject property is served by the existing Radiator Road, which is a 2-lane road, state maintained with a ditch section, cross section, which will largely remain intact. The developer will provide a sidewalk on one side of that street. The subject property is organized into 3 distinct building types. You have kind of a warehouse, manufacturing building type here, which is from 40 to 50,000 square feet. You have kind of office warehouse flex space type units. If you're familiar with the buildings along Postage Way, have a similar and a lot of flexibility in the potential future tenants in those suites. And then a climate control storage use. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and you saw graphically, the subject property is surrounded by existing or future residential on 3 sides. And so as part of this, the developer will be providing a 50-foot wide buffer surrounding the property against these residential uses. Where existing vegetation can be retained, it will be, but it will also be supplemented as needed to create a very dense buffer. Now, as part of the planning board discussion, there was some comments from the Midway Park residents who own this property, and he was concerned about impacts and compatibility. Planning board asked to see if a screening fence could be provided against that neighborhood. The developer was sympathetic to those concerns and agreed to provide that fence as part of this project. So there will be a 6-foot tall fence adjacent to that community. Okay, and going on to Mr. Savoy's question earlier. Traffic study was done by Kenley Horn and Associates. This is just a street view image. Radiator Road's on the left. You're looking southward towards Monroe. And that traffic impact study reported the need for a left turn lane into the community, as well as a right turn lane, or into the development right turn lane. And the traffic engineer who prepared the study is here tonight if there are any more detailed questions. Okay. In terms of the comprehensive plan, the subject property is located in the Sun Valley mixed-use village, and it may seem a little unusual to be discussing a light industrial park within a mixed-use village or designation, but you may recall back in 2016, the town council examined the ability to have more light industrial uses in this area, particularly in light of the fact that we have Radiator Specialty on that road. And so as part of the text amendment 2016-002, the council approved making those changes to create the ability for a project like this to come forward to be rezoned. And so it is therefore consistent with the comprehensive plan. Now, there were 2 communities held in April for this project. We had about 13 citizens attend, and predominantly from the Midway Park neighborhood. And really, the concerns expressed were what you'd expect in terms of compatibility concerns, in terms of what the future uses might be, hours of operation, transportation, traffic improvement, or trip generation and road improvements, and also stormwater was very concern based. The planning board heard this at their May 16th meeting, and a lot of the same concerns raised at the meeting were also discussed at the planning board, whether it was from members of the community or by the planning board members themselves. So again, noise, truck traffic, stormwater management were all active topics. But after discussing all of it and the need for a fence against the Midway Park neighborhood, the planning board did find that the project was consistent with our comprehensive plan, particularly as it relates to the economic development and the transportation goals. And you unanimously found it to be a reasonable request and is transmitting a recommendation to approve. And so I'd like to go ahead and read their findings that they developed into the record. Proposed amendment contributes to a more balanced tax base as it creates a higher value light industrial use that will promote job growth in the areas in coordination with the town comprehensive plan. The development incorporates roadway infrastructure improvement along Old Monroe Road that will help minimize any traffic congestion resulting from the project. The proposal is a reasonable request and is in the public interest because it supports the goals of the adopted comprehensive plan and includes elements that benefit the general public in the areas of transportation and economic development. So now we're going to conclude this presentation and ask that you receive this information. Any public comments? The applicant's representative with Eagle Engineering is here, Mr. John Ross. I believe he has a brief presentation he'd like to make to council. But ultimately, after a public comment and the council deliberation, we're going to ask that you ultimately take two votes. One, to approve the consistency findings as I've read into the record, or as you wish to modify them, and ultimately make a final decision using one of the four potential options that I've listed here. And at this point, are there any questions that I can answer before Mr. Ross speaks? Your hand opens.
If I'm not mistaken, this is pretty much is a project that's not gonna cost the town any money for road improvements or,
That's correct.
basically anything, you know, my simple mind saying, hey, we're gonna bring a business in, a large business without any funds from the town, correct?
That is correct.
They're not asking for road improvements, they're not asking for sidewalks, curb and gutter, they're gonna do it all themselves, correct?
That is correct. There's no kind of financial involvement.
Okay.
Excuse me, just a quick question. Did we get any input from our economic development person, Chris Bonte?
Mr. Pate is familiar with this project and similar to all projects that could result in the potential for new industrial land to be developed. I'll look over at Mr. Sadek. I believe he's very excited about this project.
I have mentioned it to Mr. Clifford as well. He's just aware of this. He did not get involved. No, sir.
I think it goes without saying that Mr. Pate, who's spoken before the council on many times, regarding the need for light industrial space within the greater Union County community.
No, I understand that. I was just wondering if he had an opportunity to weigh in and provide his comment on this particular industrial request. Because I know that there are some things that we're looking at from the council. He's been taking a lead on, so I'm curious what it is. But that's fine. That's my question.
A few years back, when Mr. Pate did his first presentation, this particular piece of property was centered in by Chris with pretty much an identical use for it, wondering why it hasn't been done. So it was a very similar presentation.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add that the roadway is owned by North Carolina DOT, it's not our roadway.
Thank you. Cue up Mr. Ross's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We'd like to express our gratitude for the ability to present this evening. My name is John Ross. I'm with Eagle Engineering, 2013A Van Buren Avenue here in Indian Trail. We're located in the Old Hickory Industrial Park, so we're very familiar with what the vision is for this piece of property. Also with me this evening is Mr. Jason Galloway with Eagle Engineering, Mr. Cody Turner and Mr. Dennis Moser representing the land development team, the applicants, and Ms. Laura Reed, who is with Kimlin Horn. She is our traffic consultant on this project. Rox, first of all, thank you very much for your diligence in putting your presentation together. It's always quite a risk to try to follow Rox with his thoroughness of what he puts together. But I do have just a couple points that I would like to iterate if I could. Since the town adopted an amendment in the spring of last year to the UDO, which allows specifically light industrial uses in the one Sun Valley Commons Village Center Overlay District, the development team has been working to put together a plan that will meet the goals. And the goals of this plan, as supported by the petition, are to bring the town and the local community a first-class light industrial use that is balanced with preserving the rural nature of the existing Radiator Road. It was mentioned Radiator Road is a DOT-owned and maintained road right now. We will be enhancing with some pedestrian features along the road, but the goal is to maintain the rural nature. If you've driven down that, you see the tree-lined rural street that's there, and the goal is to maintain that street. This proposed development will serve to enhance the town's economic growth through the creation of many new jobs, as well as the creation of an expanded tax base, and as Mr. Cohn pointed out, without the town investing funds in this process. So again, this is the Sun Valley Commons Village Center overlay. The project falls very well within that, as that specific overlay district that the council adopted an ordinance last year that allows for light industrial uses. Rox, you spoke very clearly about the future land use plan and how we fit well within that. You spoke diligently about the site concept plan. We have many notes that speak to the architectural integrity of the development as it will be going forward. In our diligence, in our process, we've created what is the sketch plan. We've submitted that through the town, secured approval from the town, from Public Works, and from DOT for the sketch plan and for the conditions that will be imposed upon the development. And I've created what is just a rendered site plan. I think this is a better representation visually of how the property will work. Again, a current DOT maintained street that goes back to serve the heavy industrial Radiator Road. What is proposed to be an indoor storage facility, an incubator type development again, which does already exist, something very similar on Post Office Drive, as well as in Old Hickory, as well as on Unionville Indian Trail Road. So the success of this type of business has been proven repeatedly in the town. And then some larger individual buildings served by a private road is what is anticipated at this point. What you see in blue actually represents what we anticipate to be water quality features. The site drains generally from Midway Drive to the east, so we would be capturing and maintaining the stormwater for both water quality and detention off each individual site. It's anticipated that this site and this site would both use this pond feature, which would be actually developed as an amenity to the site, and that is noted in your package there. There were a lot of discussions, again, when we had our community meetings. There were a total of 13 people that came and spoke, and it was decided that the developer will commit to building essentially a 6-foot fence between what is Midway Drive and the project. So I've created a cross section. There are some areas where the tree line is actually fairly thin between the community, between the light industrial park and the existing community. And there are some areas within that 50-foot buffer that is very heavily wooded. The intent and what we propose is where it is very heavily wooded, we'll be very selective about where we locate the 6-foot fence. We certainly don't want to take down trees to build any type of visual barrier with a fence. It'll likely be right up against the development side of that 50-foot buffer. But in areas where the trees are a little thinner, the developer is committed to building a landscape berm, planting the berm, and then putting the screen fence in the center of it, so you get the benefit of essentially a 10-foot visual barrier with landscaping on either side of it. In any case where the existing buffer does not meet the current town standards, supplemental plantings, small, medium maturing trees, as well as shrubs, will be added to enhance that to the town standards. And the commitment is that this wall, this berm, these features will be built as the development comes online for any individual parcel that's built. Then these will be put in place as a result of that parcel being developed. We have images of what our architectural features, the standard of integrity that we're setting. This would be representative of what the actual storage facility would look like. examples of what the small office warehouse or incubator spaces might look like, and then examples of what some of the larger industrial uses will look like. One other point I want to make, because we had discussions with neighbors and at the planning board, there are limitations within your ordinance, and we have those as notes on our plans, to say if it's even though it might be a light industrial use, if it's a heavier traffic area or a heavier intense use, then there's a greater separation than the 50-foot buffer. So some of the uses are as much as 250 feet away from residential property lines, and those notes are included in the plans. I can expand on that more if you wish. In accordance with your UDO, we have done a traffic study, submitted the scoping document to the town, to DOT. It was approved. Kimberly Horn developed that study. There are 2 recommendations to be made. The study was done conservatively in that it is assumed this development would be completely built out before the state improvements to Old Monroe occur. Okay, so that's the most conservative way to approach that. The 2 requirements were a 125-foot left turn lane on Old Monroe Road and a 50-foot right turn lane into the site on Old Monroe Road. And that is a result of studying 7 intersections starting at Waxhaw Indian Trail all the way to west of Chapel Stouts Road, with our site being right in the center. So a westbound 50-foot storage and eastbound 125-foot storage were the results of that traffic impact analysis. And what that looks like is this. So Old Monroe Road heading east toward Monroe, left-hand turn lane being constructed, 50-foot turn lane on the westbound side back toward Stallings on Old Monroe Road. Again, all state-maintained road, all work within the state-maintained right-of-way. And additional right-of-way being dedicated by the developer for the future Old Monroe Road improvements by DOT. As Rox indicated, on May 16th, the town planning board heard the petition, acted to approve the request with the modification of the fence as we've committed. The modification was the screening fence along the western boundary of the property. With that addition, the planning board supported the petition, noting that the plan is consistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan, including the goals of economic development and of mobility and transportation. And the vote of the planning board that evening was unanimous. We're again very thankful for Mr. Burns and Mr. Sadik and the town staff, and we're pleased that they've recommended approval. We're very pleased the planning board voted unanimously, so I hope that you will support the planning board's recommendation and the staff's decision. If there's any questions that I can answer, I'll be glad to do so.
Yeah, the buildings, if you go back to the little, it shows the whole property of the buildings.
Oh, okay, yes, sir.
Yeah. What are we looking at for square footage of each of those?
Yeah, there are no contracts, no commitments right now. This is representative of a 50,000 square foot building. This is a little larger, 50, 50, 50, 50. And I think that equates out to about 80,000 square feet.
And the storage facilities?
It's 2 stories, about 450 units.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, I've been asked to do a time check at 8 o'clock and have our recommends.
Council's allowed to discuss it. Any other?
Is there any flooding problem right now in that area that we built?
Any what problem?
Flooding problem.
Flooding problem. There are no flooding problems on this property. We have heard that there are low-lying areas along Midway Drive. The lowest point on our site, these white lines represent the contours. Our lowest point is actually right here on an undeveloped portion of Midway Drive. Our commitment is, obviously, we will not create any condition that backs water up on their site. Everything drains from Midway across this property. But like many areas in the Indian Trail, there are certainly low areas that exist that don't drain. There's not a lot of positive drainage in the center of this area, but we will, enhance by creating a stormwater network that takes and bypasses off-site water and maintains our on-site water.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open and close public comments, and we're going to sign up. This time, council, there's no further discussion over the 2 motions.
Yeah, you're not closing motions.
I'd like to approve the consistency findings as read by staff.
Mrs. Boyce made a motion to approve the consistency findings as read by staff. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a second motion to approve findings as presented.
Mrs. Savoy's made a motion to approve findings as presented. All in favor? And the record stand then too is also unanimous. Motion approved. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Ross, I didn't want to be disrespectful, but you had me at go. So,
It doesn't take
Let's
much.
don't start the movie quotes.
That brings us to old business. A,